we'll do the live thing first. Like, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bigmark podcast. It's me, your host, Bigmark. If it's your first time watching, welcome. If not, welcome back. Like I always say, if you ever want to reach out to us, feel free, hit us up on our Twitter or our Instagram. And if you ever wanted to reach out to the podcast in any other way and donate, hit us up on our Patreon, patreon.com/thebigmarkpod. And then if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. I'm super excited because it's not just me today. I got my boy Darren Brooks back in the house. What's up, brother?
Not much, man.
Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We just realized that we live like how many blocks away from each other?
Probably 5 blocks away.
Legit. And like, I mean, so you were normally in Dundas. So for anyone who hasn't seen past episodes with Darren Brooks as a guest, Darren and I worked at Momentum Fitness together, mainly at a Dundas, Ontario. And that's kind of where you were living. That's where you're born. That's where you went to high school, all that good stuff, right?
Yep.
And so I always used to think that you were there. And literally until you like walked up, you were like, oh, I live like 5 blocks away.
Yeah. And I thought I was going to a different address. And then I got here and it was a different house.
No doubt.
And let me just say, it's nice to be able to speak freely because we got there and had that awkward pre-podcast, not wasting any conversation before it's being recorded.
It's always so funny.
It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, brother. I know it's like we were just saying like that's all you can actually say before the podcast is, isn't this weird that we can't really talk?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, again, like we were kind of like holding back some stuff. Like I was saying, you know, like in the early days, because Darren, you're like one of the first guests. I think you were on like the 6th episode or something like that.
Something like that.
Something like that. And then this is 165. So it's a few later.
Yeah. I was on one in between as well.
One in between too, exactly.
Yeah.
Which it had to be like in the hundreds or something like that. We can find that out. But go check out our other episodes. They're excellent. But yeah, like this is our second time now. And again, like different zone, different area. Again, one of the first episodes we were just saying, I had Christian and Jack helping me out. Was it just Christian that time, or was it Jack too? Do you remember?
There was 2. There might have even have been 3 people in the room.
Right.
But I don't remember their names.
My buddies Jack and Christian, who we've all seen on the podcast before. I was just about to look it up on the Instagram, but this is going to be impossible. But anyway, 3rd episode now, right? But yeah, like we were just kind of saying, like some of the kind of foibles and stuff that have happened. We've already gone through, like making sure, you know, that the computer doesn't go to sleep, because that's happened before, and you know, just like kind of getting used to it, because I haven't had too many guests in the new studio here, which won't be around that much longer, to be honest, because I'm going to be moving out of here to a whole new spot soon. Cool. So that's going to be exciting. But yeah, I've been watching over my parents' place here and kind of keeping everything in line. So, and they're coming back in September for good. They're in Germany right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So they're my stepmom was working for the Canadian military, and my dad's out there working with her and or not working with her, but like also like working on the base, and like so they're like having a good time out there. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Shall we officially start this or what?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, here we go.
So I just finished Sober January. So
Buddy.
it feels good. I had 1 beer, but I'm not really a degenerate with the beers. It's more the weed for me.
I hear you.
But yeah, it's funny. The last time I think we talked in person was the podcast. And I was thinking about that on the way here. Yeah. And it's so hard to maintain relationships with so many humans. And I love you, man.
I love you too,
it's
brother.
crazy we haven't seen each other for like 2 years.
Right.
And if this is our relationship, we're the podcast boys. I can live with that. We'll have 100%. A good conversation once every whatever the period is. But yeah, it'd be cool to hang out outside this, and we live 5 blocks away from each other.
I know that's the best thing. Again, that is the weird thing about like adult relationships too now, right? Like it's so much harder to maintain. You got to like schedule everything in.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I've been feeling lately. It's just like the schedule is just like there's not enough time. Like I always used to hear that. Yeah. I always used to hear adults, parents, whoever say like there's not enough time, not enough hours in the day.
Yep.
And I was kind of like I see what they mean. Like yeah, obviously, but it's just like there's only so much you can do, and there's only so much, like, especially if it's just weekends, that you have to like kind of cram stuff in.
Yeah.
And yeah, it gets harder and harder, like even to do stuff like in the evening. I mean, I think now with the weather turning and like it's starting to get like lighter out later, you're a little bit more apt to like maybe try to do something in the evening kind of thing. But then you got clients all the time, right? Like that's like prime time for clients.
Yeah.
So,
but a lot has changed since in terms of work and stuff since last time we talked. But while we're talking about them, I'm just thinking I have probably like 100 text notifications on my phone.
Yeah.
And some of them are just like random codes.
Right.
That don't really count. But a lot of them are just me having wrote a sentence and never fully answered somebody. But that's the reality. I think in this day and age of adult relationships, because everybody's so accessible and everybody can get at you, but you don't have the time for it.
And it's so hard to say no, especially the people that you love, right? Like and like, again, there's just so much input. Like you said, you're so accessible. Anyone, and then you feel like you need to be accessible to everyone too, because you are, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
but back in the day, it was like landline or nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
Couldn't get a hold of them. And that was like a perfectly good excuse too, or like good reason. Like if someone wasn't somewhere, wasn't like, why, like now, I think again, because of that accessibility, everyone's like, why didn't you get back to me? Right? Because like everyone knows, like everyone has their phone glued to their hip at all times. Like for whatever reason, like even if you're not like on it constantly, everyone like has their phone. Like, something has to happen with the phone these days. But that's like that pressure, I think, that actually comes with it, is that like everyone knows you have it. So like they expect you, and then you have to like almost come up with some kind of fucking crazy reason.
Yeah.
Just to be like, I didn't see it, or I couldn't get whatever, instead of just being like, sorry, like I can't. Or whatever. I don't know, man.
Sorry, I didn't feel like answering, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's the reality of it a lot of the time. And that could be perceived as not that nice, but you know, you only have so much energy. Right. And everybody has a different opinion of how accessible they should be and how much you should use your phone. So if you're somebody who likes to leave your phone off,
right,
you're a horrible person.
Yeah. Oh, I know, right? Yeah, like no notifications. I mean, now on Instagram I've seen it, like you can like put your like notifications on like sleep or something, and then when you send something, it gives you a little bubble that says, or like a little notification that says this person has their notifications like on silent.
Yeah.
So then that honestly is all you really need, because then you don't really feel so bad like when they and like I guess someone could get pissed off at you for having, but like honestly, at least you know it's silent. It's not just like, oh, they're ignoring they've read the text, they're ignoring it, right? Like that's so much worse, especially if there's no read receipt and you can't tell if they've read it or not.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the read receipt might be worse, because then it's like, oh, they have definitely got it.
They've seen it, 100% worse. If they haven't seen it, better. It's more reassuring. But you can sometimes read a text when it just like comes up like on your notification screen.
Yeah.
And it doesn't show that it's read. But
which is the best.
Yeah.
But if it's a big text, you have to open it. And then sometimes I like to respond in time, so I want to know what I'm going to be responding to.
Right.
But then I feel like I should leave it unread so the other person doesn't think that I read it, and I don't feel like getting back to them.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a weird time for people trying to navigate through all this.
So much wild pressure. Like I feel like anyone older, like significantly older than us, is probably listening to this going like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Oh, my dad doesn't even have a cell phone.
Sure.
So he doesn't even know what my mom's doing if she's on her phone. Like maybe she's texting, maybe she's on social media watching a video. Right. He just sees it as the phone.
Sure.
Yeah. Not this whole world that it is.
It is, man. It's like, what are those like obsidian mirrors or whatever that they used to find like in Aztec tombs and shit, or like some shit. They used to find these like obsidian mirrors that were like these like black screen, like black mirrors. Like you could like see right, black mirror.
Cool.
And you could like look right in and see, and like, it's like a seeing stone basically, and like
trippy.
The idea was that potentially, I don't know about the Aztec shits, but there's like a witchcraft element around these things that you can somehow like see, like it's like a portal to other dimensions.
Crazy.
Or whatever, or like to another person with one of those things, kind of like the Palantir in Lord of the Rings, you know, that like little stone that fucking Mary or Pippin grabs, and he's like,
yeah.
So that like, it's like that's where the idea kind of came from. Whereas like that they found these like, again, black mirrors essentially, and that's essentially what the phones are too, right? Like when it's not on, it's just like a black, right? But like we are looking into it, seeing this whole thing. Yes.
Yeah.
it's connected to some type of network now. And like, that's the craziest thing about finding like artifacts is like, what if we did at one point have a civilization that had like wireless connections? You could never tell by the devices. If you just found this fucking hunk of metal and precious stones and gems and metals that like fucking people died to make.
A lot, probably. Yeah.
Sadly. If you just found this in the dirt, and you couldn't turn it on, obviously it would have no battery life. You wouldn't know how to charge it. It would just be a fucking hunk of junk. You would be like, this is some type of thing. Yeah. It might be in a hammer, right? Like, you have no idea what you could say this thing is, right? Unless there was other evidence corroborating that. But like, if it's on a fucking hard drive, it's going to be gone. If it's some kind of like natural disaster or something like that, right? Yeah. Like, we put all this faith in like hard drives and electronic servers and all this stuff, but like one EMP burst, we're done. Like, everyone's worried about getting nuked. Yeah, they just throw one like EMP fucking Ocean's 11 style bomb that's like big enough. Remember in first Ocean's 11?
I can't remember. It's been a while.
First Ocean's 11, Don Cheadle's character like sets off this what the fuck do they call it? A pinch or something they call it, and it's like a huge EMP bomb. It doesn't blow up, it just emits electrical magnetic radiation.
Okay, I vaguely remember that.
And he sets it off and it shuts down all the lights in the casino, and that's when they break into the vault and steal the money. Yeah, but like, that's a fucking shitty movie. Like, shitty, that's a movie. Yeah, Hollywood thinking that up. Like, obviously military applications aside, like, people have thought of that. But it would also fuck up their shit. That's the problem. True. You can't, like, it's really hard to send, like, you know, you kind of wonder why haven't they done it. It's hard because without fucking up your own shit. Yeah. Like, they'd have to do it from deep. And that's it. But who knows? I wonder. Anyway, like, even the fucking sun could do one of those mass coronal ejections and it emits like electromagnetics, right? Like, it could fuck up our electronics. Yeah. And that would, what the fuck's his name? Chrissy DiStefano. Do you know Chris DiStefano?
Is he a comedian?
Comedian, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
Chrissy
him
Chaos,
well.
he's wild. But he, on one of his podcasts, he was talking to a guest, and he was like, I was on a TV show or some shit where he was talking to like a CIA or like at a dinner party, but he was talking like an ex-CIA guy, like, who was like legit, like way up in the fucking ranks. And he was like, what is something that scares you? Like, what is something that keeps you up at night that like no one else knows, that like it's like the only thing that you think of, really, what scares you anyway. And he's like, that like you could get sent back to the Stone Age by like killing our power grid. Like, our power grid is so fucking vulnerable. Yeah. Like, you could easily take out our power grid and it would send us back to the Stone Age literally for like 6 months. Wow. It would take that long if it got like catastrophically fucking destroyed. Yeah. This is America. Yeah. But
and a lot of our shit would be maintained in that 6 months, you know?
Zero. Yeah. Dude, I was just listening to like a pandemic era podcast, like an old one, and they were talking about like the whole toilet paper scare and shit. Remember that? Yep. Like, that's what happens when people are like back against the wall.
Yeah, and that was pretty tame in comparison to what things could be.
That wasn't really that bad. Again, it was bad. Obviously, I'm not saying Corona wasn't bad, but like, it could have been so much worse. Yeah. And that's our reaction before like all the information really came out. That was really scary. Yep. Right? Like, that was like, no faith. Got no faith in the humans. Yeah. But that was the scary thing about the vid, right? Like, it pushed us all away from each other, right? I was excited almost. Obviously it was scary, but I was excited to be like, I feel like this was going to bring humanity together. Like, when we were faced with it, like in 2020 March. Yeah. I was like, might be an opportunity for everyone to be like, hey, like, we can get through this together. Like, all we need to do is realize that, like, that's how we're here on the planet at all, is that we cooperate well. Yeah. But it just had the literal opposite. And like, even after 9/11, I don't know, you're a couple years younger than me, but do you remember like after 9/11, there was like this emanating sense of like pride. Yeah, and I remember like a little bit of that. It was honestly, because like, I swear, not to get too woo woo, but I swear, like, I mean, I'm in grade 5, not not super old, but like, you know, you're fucking conscious anyway.
Yeah.
And I swear, being on the east side of things, like you could feel the energy coming from New York City of them just being like, fuck that. Like, because everyone was worried that everyone was going to go to, it was just like when London was getting bombed in World War II. Everyone was so scared that London, the people morale was just going to plummet and no one was going to know what to do.
Yeah.
Right. But like they like all banded together and just like rose up, the whole like keep calm and carry on thing. But like, they just like almost started railing against it. And like some people were like, fuck yeah, bombing. Like we're fucking ready and you can't kill us.
Yeah.
Like we can handle this shit. But like New York City was almost facing the same thing where they could have all been like paranoid and scared and like everyone would be like, who the fuck are you? Yes, there was like general racism going on against people who were like from like the Middle East. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. But other than that, everyone was like, you know, letting people in traffic and like just like said, fuck it. Like, we're not going to, we got punched in the face, but we're not going to like, we're New York, all that shit.
Yeah.
But I swear I felt that energy coming from there. And I was hoping it was going to be something like that.
Yeah. I think it might be a little early to decide that it's not something like that because it's still recent-ish, you know, it's still going on. Like COVID's not gone. And it was just such a unprecedented, that's such a generic way to put it. But like everybody got fucked. And a lot of people had never been fucked before. Yeah. So I think collectively we're still digesting things and we haven't picked up the pieces yet. And maybe when we do, that's going to result in some collective, hey, we got to be pals. Yeah. Simply put kind of vibe. Yeah. I hope so anyway, because I had the same thought. And actually, I think last time we chat, it was during COVID.
Sure. Yeah. So for sure.
I don't know what my point was there, but
we might have said the same thing. Like we might have
maybe,
right? Like 100%.
But yeah, I think people are still picking up the pieces. Pretty traumatic event for a lot of folks, you know. I could see how things could get really bad. I was stuck in a basement apartment. Right. I went to Costa Rica at one point and had to quarantine for like 19 days because I messed up the protocol. So I was supposed to do my test, but it was supposed to be with the presence of an online nurse, but I just rushed things. I was probably baked and I just did it by myself. Right. Sent it away and they're like, we can't accept this. You have to stay way longer and do it with a nurse. So it was like 19 days or something. I couldn't, and they would call and check in on me and be like, you haven't gone outside today, have you? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can go outside, right? They're like, no, you can't go outside.
What the fuck?
Dude, it was
literally
crazy.
Quarantined hard.
Yeah. And like, I didn't have a dog, but that was the first thing I thought, what if I had a dog? I'm not just going to keep this dog stuck inside. I didn't have a backyard.
Right. Oh my God.
Yeah. It's crazy times. And I know people who didn't know that this was going to happen and they traveled and they got back and they were thrown in some hotel and they didn't have a choice to stay there.
Really?
Which raises all sorts of weird stuff about, you know, when, not that I know anything about this, but when the government decides they want to do shit. Sure. We don't really have a whole lot to say.
No, unfortunately. Yeah, no, I know. That's where things get like kind of fucking scary. Where they just start pulling shit and you're kind of like, well, I guess we have to go along with it. Or what? You like go to jail? Or like go to the fucking gulag? Like,
yeah.
But like, yeah, travel and all that shit was like so fucked up. Like even just like, I think when I went to Portugal, you still had to wear a mask the whole time. I think maybe coming back from Germany, I had to wear a mask, or I think on one airline for sure, and on another maybe not. I know in Germany, if you're on the public transit, you had to wear a mask still, but in Netherlands, no. So like it depends on Europe's wild like that though. Like it's different. It's country to country.
Yeah, but travel was wild and. I didn't get vaccinated, right? So that was just this whole different world of scrutiny. And I have reasons, you know? And it's a weird subject. Yeah. For so many reasons, you know?
I know. It opens up a can of worms.
Absolutely.
And everyone is probably like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, anytime that I say it. So then I was like, I'm not even going to bother saying it. But then you feel like you're keeping the secret. But it feels like just to me, like just Cole's notes, I had some crazy autoimmune disorder, and there was some evidence to suggest that if you had that disorder and you got vaccinated, you could get it again. Sure. And I'm like, I'm not going to take a chance. I'm a pretty healthy guy, you know? I take more precautions than the average person to have a decent immune system. So because of that, traveling was just a nightmare. I bet. So I managed to escape in this brief window before they completely closed things down because I wanted to do yoga teacher training in Costa Rica.
Right.
But I foolishly overlooked things. So I called Delta and I was like, you sure I can go? I'm not vaccinated. Like, you promise I can go?
Sure.
And they're like, yeah, you're going to be good. But I didn't look into, I had a layover in Atlanta. So you're allowed to fly from Canada to Costa Rica, but you're not allowed to fly from Canada to Atlanta. So I got to the front desk and was like, yep, I'm just flying to Costa Rica. And they're like, all right, proof of vaccination. I was like, I don't have it. I didn't think I need it. And they're like, can't go. So I was like, what the fuck? I guess I'm not going.
Fuck.
So then I had a brief period of panic and then just figured out they were really lenient about refunds because there was all sorts of stuff that happened. So I got a refund and then I had to fly to Mexico and then fly to Costa Rica.
God damn.
So it worked out, but it was just an adventure to say the least. And then being in the airports during those times and seeing just the crazy, I mean, I understand, I don't mean crazy as in illegitimate,
right?
But the protocol of just sanitizing and masks and the distancing was wild. It's crazy being removed from it now, because last time we chatted, we weren't removed from it.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. No, that's what I mean. Like, it literally was like separating, like, to the fullest. It was about getting people away from each other. Again, people who are living on their own were completely done. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, like completely isolated people. And there was like people were taking it like seriously to varying degrees, right? Yeah. Like some people weren't. Some people
were driving with masks in their car.
Right. Which is like so over the top. Was so over the top. And it's like, there was a lot of weird information coming out because no one really knew, right? Mm-hmm. So like the government was just kind of like giving out information. But anyway, I don't want to talk about COVID all the time, but it was like something that separated us so much. And I feel like so scared that, again, but like you said, hopefully you're right in that it's not completely over. There's still a chance that we can all kind of look around. Aliens are going to be coming.
I've heard some whispers. Thing. So that's what have you heard?
That's what Werner von Braun said on his deathbed. He's like, there's going to be a threat.
Is that the Scientology guy?
No, he's the Nazi scientist who was the head of NASA and got everyone to the moon.
Okay.
And he came over with Operation Paperclip and like this whole thing. But on his deathbed, I'm pretty sure it was Werner, but he was like, he's like, the government will try to regain control of the people like 3 ways. They'll do like some kind of, I think, threat of nuclear war, I think is one of them, which is like all the 80s. And then he's like, there will be a global pandemic, and then there will be extraterrestrials would be like the third and final like thing. And they're kind of like titrating all this like weird UFO stuff lately, like into like mainstream media, like that whole shit with that crazy alien body they found in Mexico. Did you see that thing?
No.
That like clay doll.
No, I'm out of the loop.
It was like, it looked hella fucking fake, man. Like there's no way this fucking, I got to show you, bro. It's so please. Fucked.
It's funny. I knew coming here today, I'm just so out of the loop with so many things, but I know you've just got all sorts of information in your head. I knew I was going to learn some shit today.
Oh yeah, brother. But like, this is what I mean. Like, oh fuck yeah. There it is. There it is, bro. That's real.
What?
The Mexican government was like, we found this shit. 100% is real.
What?
They presented it as real. It was like this big like conference essentially that they were like, yep.
And the Mexican government.
I'm pretty sure it was
Mexico. For some reason that sounds more legit than if it was the American government.
Yeah. Mexico's Congress. The whole scientific community is fighting back. Yeah, no shit. Crazy. But yeah, see what I mean? Like there's like this like, and then you have like Lieutenant Faber or whatever, that one like Navy pilot who like saw it. He was on Rogues.
No, I didn't see him.
He was like this pilot who has this story of seeing, he calls it like a tic tac. It's like this like little tiny, like, or not tiny, it's not the size of a tic tac. On the screen, you see it's this little tiny thing, but it's an alien craft that he says like was shaped like a tic tac, and it was like doing moves and shit that were like impossible. He said it like at one point it looked like it was like moving like a ping pong in a glass jar, like it was like moving faster would like kill anybody who was in it if it was like obeying the actual laws. And he like followed it in one of his in his jet. He was out flying, saw it, and like followed it for a bit. And then it just did like evasive maneuvers and went, I think, into the ocean.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So did you hear about the thing that happened at the mall where there was, I don't even know where this was, maybe Vegas, hundreds of police cars because there was an alien sighting or something?
No way. Was that super recent?
Pretty recent.
Okay.
I was hoping that you could tell the story because I think I just heard from another buddy.
Let's see if we can look it up, Jamie.
Sure.
So where was it?
I want to say Vegas, but I'm not sure.
Vegas alien sighting?
Yeah, maybe right.
That came up.
Vegas mall alien sighting.
10-foot creature?
I haven't heard that.
Maybe it was mall. Maybe I'm gonna remove Vegas and just go alien sighting mall. But
Sure.
do you remember anything about the story?
I just know there was 100 cop cars that showed up to a mall for something.
Miami?
Maybe.
Does that sound right? Police say LOL. Don't be giving us fucking false news here.
I might be spreading misinformation.
Are you bringing
That's what I came here
news?
for. Yeah.
Teens running, police converging in a gray splotch that appears to be moving. Videos from an outdoor mall in Miami stoked wild claims this week on social media that aliens had landed on Earth. But the truth is far more terrestrial. I guess it was, if this is it might be something else that you saw, though.
Yeah.
This was January 5th this year. So
that sounds right. That lines up.
That recent?
Yeah.
Debunked alleged alien in Miami mall. Does that look like any of the videos
definitely. Yeah.
You're bringing fake news, D-Man.
Well,
no.
All I know, one of my roommates one day was super excited. He was like, "Man, did you hear they found aliens?"
I just was talking to my buddy in the band. Mm-hmm. Do you know Trevor Roach?
I don't think so.
There's no one in the band that you know. It's Scott Mallon that you know.
Yep.
And he knows my buddy Trev in the band, which is small world. But
we had Scott Mallon on here?
Scott Mallon. Yeah, he's been on at least once.
Oh,
he
cool.
came on solo dolo, and then he came on with Tristan. But yeah, Scott's the man. His mom just passed away, sadly.
Damn.
Super sad. I went to the wake ski. He's all right. I worry about Andrew a little bit. Do you know Andrew at all? His older brother?
No.
So I went to school with both of them. So Andrew's a year older than me, and Scott's a year younger than me. You and Scott are the same age, right?
I think Scott might be a year older than me.
Older, yeah. Because I thought you were 2 years younger. But anyway, so I was right in between them. So I played football and basketball actually with Andrew, Scott's older brother, and then I played basketball with Scott. So I know all of them, but his older brother's not nearly as gregarious as Scott is.
What does gregarious mean?
Outgoing and Scott. A picture. Yeah. Scott is essentially the essential. He's everyone knows him. He's friendly. He's just
yeah.
It's not boisterous. That's a negative version of it. But
gotcha.
Not loud. That's negative version.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That's antonym.
And I haven't seen Scott. I don't even know. Probably 15 years.
Fuck.
But
that's wild.
Yeah, really memorable guy for sure.
As soon as you're on the one episode, he sent me over that soccer that picture.
Oh, that picture?
Yeah.
Was it? Do we have yellow jerseys?
I think so. Yeah.
It's a good team.
Hilarious.
Good times.
Soccer, man.
Yep.
So other than soccer, what did you play any other sports growing up? Or
hockey was my favorite by far. I think soccer was the first thing I played. I think I had a shitload of energy, so my mom got me signed up in soccer when I was 3.
Sick.
But hockey was my first love.
When did you get into jiu-jitsu?
Maybe close to 7 years ago, probably. Okay. In July, I think it will be 7 years.
Okay, so it was right around when you started at Momentum.
Yeah, right around then.
Cool.
And partly because I retired from hockey because my hips were kind of messed up.
Right.
And you would think jiu-jitsu would mess your hips up, and there's times where it's not the most comfortable, but just, I don't know, it's not as much impact. And I think hockey, just that rotation and going so far with your range of motion. Yeah. But I'm 6 months post hip surgery.
Yeah.
And the most comfortable I've been in the hip region since I was 21.
Amazing.
There's so many things you take for granted. So I was just in Nova Scotia to visit my parents, and I have a good story about that. Well, a few stories.
Sick.
But just wearing winter boots seems like a superpower because winter boots are kind of heavy.
Yeah.
And then they kind of affect your stride.
Sure.
They would just wreck my hips in the winter. So for the past 6 years, I've been wearing running shoes all winter. So my feet are always damp, and I've only been carrying spare socks for the past 2 years.
Okay.
And I've just kind of been all right, I guess this is part of winter. Your feet are just damp the whole time. But wearing winter boots is sick.
Yeah, buddy.
So I was just going on adventures, walking in the snow.
It does feel like a superpower sometimes when you have the right boot. The key is the right boot. But yeah, when you have or ice fishing. I went out ice fishing once with not a great boot.
Yeah.
And it was fucking not great. But then when I finally got a right boot and good socks, it's you can do whatever. You can basically walk. It's sometimes wearing gloves. Working on shit. Sometimes you're it's you're kind of careful or whatever, but as soon as you put gloves on, you're fucking grabbing rocks.
Absolutely.
You're fucking throwing shit around. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. I used to work at a plant nursery. So that involved being on an assembly line, sometimes for 3 hours at a time, packing soil around plants, and there'd be rose season. So people would just fuck their hands.
Oh my God.
They had this thing. They said it was the rose flu. People would always call in sick for rose season, and you would just your hands would be so swollen.
You couldn't rock gloves?
No. Well, you could rock gloves, but I think I went through a phase of just being an idiot and being like, I like to feel the soil.
Macho. Yeah, and also
I don't know. It was probably macho, but I was trying to tell myself it was something else. But then the odd time I would wear gloves, I'd be like, what the fuck? Why am I not wearing gloves? This makes so much sense.
Right.
Or we would do this thing where we'd had to load pots in a warehouse and you put one finger in between the pots so you could pick up 2 at the same time. Or if you're really feeling ambitious, you pick up 4 pots. So you put your fingers in all 4 corners of the pot. You fuck the soil up. It's probably not the best thing to do. But didn't feel great with no gloves.
No doubt.
Gloves, superpower.
100%. You get a little extra grip. No problem.
Exactly.
Did you ever play football?
That's such a good example. Yeah. I only played 1 year of house league and then maybe 3 years of high school.
Okay.
But I remember when I started wearing gloves.
Yeah.
And I felt so much more secure out there. Because
100%.
taking a helmet to the hand sucks. And you wouldn't think that thin layer would make you more confident in jumping into a pilot. But I remember gloves making a huge difference.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Again, that's always the downside of football is like when you have the right equipment, you truly feel invincible. And a good set of gloves, especially, I don't know if, have you ever seen O-line gloves?
Probably, I can't
They're
recall.
just like, as you could imagine, like beefier fucking gloves.
Yeah.
They're not really concerned about the grip here. Sometimes I had one of the nicer pairs I had, they just had like, cutters. Do you remember that brand, Cutters?
Yeah.
Was that what you had or like
I think I got hand-me-down cutters from a buddy.
Same, like all the football gloves are same idea. There's like that thing. Do you know why they're called cutters? They're invented by glass cutters that they're actually based off glass handling gloves. And then you can have like the dudes who like carry big sheets of glass. That's the same shit that's on cutters.
Yeah.
So their gloves are made of that, and you can just like sandwich a piece of glass and carry it no matter what, as long as you can lift it.
Cool.
It's crazy. So the guy who invented it's from London. So when I played London Beefeaters, that's what we were sponsored by. So we got like sick cutters. So anyway, I got those, but they had so much padding and like big, like kind of beefy around the wrists. So you just whoosh.
Yeah.
But yeah, not only for catching the ball, but again, just like protection on your hands. Like, oh my God, you needed gloves for sure. And it was night and day. And I was almost the same idea with that aspect of like, I used to practice without them. Yeah. Like I got to toughen up my hands and then like play games with them. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, you know, the right equipment and you feel like you can do anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just ADHD for a second and go back to Nova Scotia. I feel like
this is
a worthwhile story.
You teased that story. Let's hear it.
Nova Scotia, that's where my parents live. It's where my sister lives now. She had a baby.
Where in Nova Scotia?
Nobody knows. Nicktaw, but nobody knows where that is.
Okay.
So it's like an hour and a half from Halifax.
Okay, like out
I couldn't
Cape
tell
Breton
you.
way or
I don't know.
Okay.
People have asked me these questions so many times and I haven't looked into it. Close to Wolfville, 40 minutes from Wolfville, if that means anything to you.
Sure. Not exactly, just because I know a little bit more like Cape Breton way.
Okay.
I think Wolfville, it might be south, but sorry to all my East Coast listeners.
Nah.
I don't know yet.
They'll be all right.
It's just outside Halifax. A little bit outside Halifax.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So first, just crazy going down there. I won't tell the whole story. My dad has Lyme disease.
Okay.
So crazy trying to diagnose that. Thought it was meningitis. He was in solitary confinement. When I was going there, I was like, I don't know how this is going to play out. It sounded really bad for a minute. So he's good now, but it was pretty stressful the week leading up to it.
Wow.
So there was like an overarching exhale while I was there that he was okay. And he doesn't have the best lifestyle. I doubt he'll ever hear this, but this is just an opinion. But he's on B12 and a multivitamin. He's like, man, I have so much more pep in my step now. It's like, you should have been fucking taking this years ago.
Yeah,
it took Lyme disease to take any kind of supplement.
Sure.
Besides the point. Just crazy time out there. My grandma got sick, was falling out of bed.
Oh.
She's mostly blind and partly deaf. So anyway, not the most relaxing trip in the world. Lots of great times. Nova Scotia Air, good family connection. But leaving a little bit stressed out, you know?
Sure.
So our flight, it's just me and my grandma. We're supposed to fly out at 9:50 p.m. and then the flight gets delayed. No big deal. Flight gets delayed again. Kind of sucks, whatever. So we're supposed to leave at midnight. And then we're waiting to get on the plane. Midnight rolls around and there's staff speed walking around whispering in each other's ears. I remember seeing these two like good old boy kind of guys laughing, joking around, and then staff whispered in their ear and their demeanors completely dropped. This story doesn't really have a really satisfying ending because we never found out what was going on. Still. So security's walking on and off the plane. There was a crying woman at some point. The staff was stressed to say the least. So anyway, just mystery, further delaying the flight. So we don't get on the flight until about 1. And then I'm just chilling, got my eyes closed. My grandma's a few seats back. And side note, listening to 3 Day Road. I don't know if you ever heard that.
No, what's that?
It's a novel, but it's based off World War I. Inspired about this Cree Indigenous sniper from Canada. Oh, shit. We can talk about that more in a minute. You'd probably be really interested in it. It's a sick book.
Okay.
So I'm just eyes closed, listening to that book, wondering why we're not taking off.
Right.
I finally open my eyes, and I can feel everybody around me getting kind of tense because the staff's not telling us much.
Okay.
And I see some woman starting to leave the plane, and she's holding 2 chihuahuas. So I'm like, all right, I guess this woman's getting kicked off the plane, or she decided otherwise. So I think we're going to leave. And then the flight attendants get us to take all of our bags from the overhead, hold it on our lap with it open so they can come give it a brief search. Fine. But all around me, I'm hearing, fuck sakes, what is this? Let's just fucking leave. People are getting pissed. I have this like super neurotic dude beside me who's just moving all over the place. Sketching? I saw him earlier. Oh, sketching so hard. Saw him earlier just talking people's ears off. I was like, I can't be beside him. And then I was obviously beside him.
No.
It was fine. I just had headphones in.
Sure.
So we take off at 2:40. Supposed to leave at 9:50. In the meantime, I'm communicating with my uncle. Still haven't, because he's picking us up in Toronto. Haven't left yet. Still haven't left yet. So we take off. I go talk to the flight attendants because they have taken some abuse and they don't want to be there, you know? So I was like, hey, you guys are doing a good job. Like, I know everyone's pissed, but I know you don't want to be here, you know?
Right.
So they're super appreciative to hear that. And I start talking to them a little bit, and then they kind of look around and they give me the inside scoop. Turns out that woman had claimed one of her chihuahuas, but was trying to smuggle an additional chihuahua in her luggage, but didn't do anything to make it discreet. Probably didn't sedate it. So somebody just saw a moving, probably barking bag. I mean, maybe that story dragged on a little longer than it need to. Long story short, flight got delayed because a fucking woman tried to smuggle a chihuahua.
Smuggling chihuahuas.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Across provincial lines.
Yeah. And then finally, my grandma was sitting a few seats back, so we got off together. She had to wait to get a wheelchair. Her knee's all bummed. But she's like, yeah, I heard there was a security issue. Maybe there was a bomb. I'm like, yo, grandma.
Don't say that here.
I don't think you can say that here.
Not in the airport.
The people beside her are like giving her the side eye.
Did you say bomb?
Yeah. So I got home at 5:30 a.m. Sunday morning this week.
Oh my God.
And it just set the tone. Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? How do you even, like, what are you smuggling dogs? Like, what do you even mean? Like, that's craziness.
I don't know, man.
It's different, though. Like, I think back in the thing, people were probably still used to, like, it depends. Was she an older lady? Do you remember?
It was hard to say. Okay. If I had to guess, maybe like 53.
Okay. Well, because I was going to say, like, back in the day, like, flying was no big deal. Like, you could, it was like kind of like taking the bus.
Yeah.
Right? But, like, again, not to fucking bring up 9/11 again. 2 times
the 9/11 podcast.
Yeah, fuck. It's like before then, before like all the crazy security measures and stuff, it was easy peas. There was like, my parents used to tell me about like flights down to like Atlantic City and stuff for like $20, craziness, and people would just be drinking, smoking, or like, and just like go to gamble for the night and then catch a flight back like in the morning.
Yeah,
craziness.
Yeah,
craziness. Or like even like to Buffalo basically, or like shit like that, like a quick 20-minute flight basically, like
yeah.
But yeah, again, I think times are, you can't smuggle anything, man. Don't try.
Yeah.
It's not like, you're gonna kind of get like, who is actually getting away with it? I wonder.
Yeah.
Like with anything these days in the airport. I feel like if I was a criminal, I'd be like, just, we can't use airports.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have to be like, well, it's got to be something else.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be cars. It's got to be fucking somehow private jets or like other shit, like shipping containers. I don't even know.
Yeah. Yep. So 3 Day Road.
But what's this book? Yeah.
It's one of the first books I was ever interested. I was a horrible student, hard to focus, wasn't interested in anything. Mm-hmm. But they got us reading 3 Day Road. And yeah, it's about these 2 Cree Canadian indigenous.
Shout out Parkdale.
Parkside. Yeah.
Whoops. Sorry.
You were Highland? No, you were.
I was St. Mary's.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that was
with the Giles
Catholic.
boys.
Sorry. Oh my
Just
God.
name
Parkdale.
dropping.
Yeah. The Giles boys. What up?
Yeah. Shout out to Adam and Sam. Well, actually, Sam was a Parkside boy.
Adam was a St. Mary's Parkside. Boy. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I knew a bunch of Highland kids, and then the Parkside boys were like all the basketball guys I knew.
Cool.
So like Sikatini, the guys would be like older, like even a few years older than you.
Yeah.
Because they might have been. I think Sikatini was a year older than me, so he would have been like a senior when you were in grade 9, if that.
Yeah.
Quinn Henderson.
Yep.
Remember Quinn?
Yep.
I know him. A few other boys from there. But yeah.
It was a good crew. I remember the team was super good, but
hell yeah,
a lot of charismatic fellas. I like Sika a lot. Quinn was cool too.
Promptly bulldozed.
Yeah, promptly bulldozed, and then everybody graduated, and I think their team was just garbage for a while. But yeah, 3 Day Road. These guys, they grow up being hunters and trappers.
Okay.
And then they end up becoming snipers in the army, and all the skills translate. But one of them doesn't like being there because it's the war, and then the other one starts thriving, so there starts becoming this disconnect, and then he gets on morphine, and that continues to make him crazier, and they start scalping people, and it's a really good, I mean, spoilers right there, but
right. So, buddy,
it's a really good novel.
So when you say it's because of the war, is it more like he's just like, it's just awful and he hates being there?
Yeah, he doesn't. Okay. He takes a really long time to start killing people, and then never really accepts. He has resistance to it, understandably so, but knows that it's part of it. It's really graphic. It's just I think it's a good portrayal about how atrocious the war actually was.
How is it written? Like, is it like a excuse me, like a third-hand account kind of thing, or like
so?
Did the guy survive? Spoiler alert.
I don't think the guy who starts scalping people survives.
Understandably.
And I don't know if the other guy survives, but I think the book starts. He is really disappointed, to say the least, in his buddy starting to do morphine and stuff like that. It's not really his fault because he gets shot, I think, and then he gets injected against his will, and then it's on his radar, and then he dabbles, and then he dabbles deeper in that old story of addiction. But the story starts with, I guess, the protagonist, Xavier. He's missing a leg, and he's being canoed in a canoe by his aunt, but he's barely there, like barely conscious. It seems like he's going to die, and he's addicted to morphine. So he's going through flashbacks, and then most of the story takes place in flashbacks, him talking about his account of the war and how things progress. And then sometimes it'll talk about his aunt's perspective, and she'll be telling stories to him, even though he's basically passed out because he's on morphine and maybe dying. So then it'll go into one of her stories. No, it's not a true story.
Right.
But I think those two characters are inspired by this guy, Peggy something, who was an indigenous sniper who just had like a crazy amount of kills and had all the skills before the war started.
Sure.
From hunting and tracking and shooting and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of like Canadian and American soldiers were, of indigenous background, and like were like wild. Like some of them were like so good and just like, again, completely equipped already with the skills to be like an effective soldier.
Yep.
I think I remember hearing of one like Canadian dude who would do night attacks, and he would wear moccasins and shit at night, and like literally no one could hear him coming, and he would just like knife a whole battalion, and then just be like, all right, come on, to the rest of the boys, and they'd be like, all right. Crazy.
Yep.
Like I again, that's like you hear some of the stories. So it's a old country western song. I don't even know who actually wrote it. It's like the Ballad of Ira Hayes. Have you ever heard that? It's the chorus, like, call him drunken Ira Hayes, he won't answer anymore, not the whiskey drinking Indian or the Marine that went to war. And it's like this whole story of him like going away to fight for his country and then coming back, and like everyone being like, fuck you, treating him like shit, not only because but like probably mostly because he was native. But like, and then he got like on the booze, and then just ended up like dying in a fucking puddle. Jeez. Like, it's fucking awful. But again, it's that story of a lot of veterans, but again, also veterans of minority or whatever groups that went over there and just got fucked over. Like black dudes too. Same idea. Like African Americans.
Yep.
They just got like their own platoons, and then just like got sent bullshit jobs, or like got sent into craziness.
Yep.
Like still treated like ass. So unfair, man. Like, and just like killing, like literally dying for the country.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty happy we're not in that kind of wartime. And what comes to mind is Brad Pitt in Fight Club. You know the quote? He's like, the war we're not fighting is a literal war. It's a spiritual war. Yeah. Like, the wars for now are out of the way. I mean, different parts of the world, completely different story,
I know,
completely different subject.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have that conflict right in our face. So our battle is just fucking unraveling all the weird mind stuff and try to function with all the lack of natural stuff in our society.
Yeah. I think we're at the end of like the North American Empire, the American Empire. And all the rules and stuff have been thrown out the window.
Yeah.
Because they're like, nothing else matters. Like, everything's going to shit. Like, someone else is going to be the top dog, you know? You can't be the top dog forever. The Romans went down, the Britons went down, and America have had to go down eventually. And they've only been the shit since the end of World War II.
True.
Just because Britain was so fucked up, America like stepped in.
Yeah.
So same thing could happen now. Like, again, all the shit that North America and especially the States have been through have just beaten them down so much. If you are another country like China, like Iran, and like some of these other wild countries that are like in the mix, like, you're like, how are we gonna like get together and like push these dudes out and like say like, fuck it? Or like, there's a bunch of countries getting off the American dollar and stuff like that, and being like, these guys are fucked. The only thing that America has going for them is this army.
True.
But that's really only if there's like conventional warfare. And like, don't get me wrong, obviously they have a lot of guns and warships and fucking aircraft carriers, but they also have a lot of crazy tech that's like behind the scenes that we have no fucking clue about. So I believe that's the biggest thing. And I almost see America as this like old, like senile man who's like crazy, but has like a fucking nuke.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, so you can't fuck with them. They're going to do wild shit. Yeah. They're going to do, but like, that's the problem, is that someone eventually is going to be like, this can't happen.
Yeah.
And Russia's been trying to infiltrate since the end of the Cold War. They've just been fucking infiltrating. They have been, you know, whether it's collusion and vote tampering or not, like, they're involved. It's all on Twitter. Like, all there's like known that there's like Russian trolls on Twitter just like fucking shit up.
Yep.
So all this shit is happening, and like, so everyone's seeing that and going like, what the fuck matters anymore? Right. So therefore traditions go out the window, all these other things that like potentially, you know, at least gave people like a sense of being a part of something bigger. Yeah. Like, cause I think that's the biggest thing, right? Like, you talk about that spiritual war, right? Is like, we become so disconnected from each other. It's what it is. Like, you know, you can say higher powers, whatever it is. I believe like that there's some kind of like global collective unconscious that, so like, whether that is God, whether whatever, you know, like even if in Christian teachings, Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you. So I think like we are God in the sense, experiencing each other in all different fathoms and different perspectives. But there is something that exists that's like, that is bigger than us, but it is us. Yeah. In this, it's like strangely cosmically confusing. But I think with everything that's happening, and not to continue to harp on the vid, but including social media and like everything's custom and fashion and everything's like, you're the only person who has this, like rarities and like, and uniqueness and gender identity and all these things where you're like, I am this only person. You need to respect my uniqueness. You need to respect myself as me. You're separating yourself. You're creating an island. And then all of a sudden, when you hit the rocks and you looked around to be like, how did other people like me get through this? You go, there's no one else like me because I've isolated myself, created this island. True. And you look around and go, I have no idea how to get through this. I don't know who to look to. And like, again, I have so much bad shit to say about organized religion, but it is something that people can look to an example. Jeebus, right? You can be like, well, WWJD, right? What would Jesus do? It's comforting. It might be completely unfound. It might be completely like misread and craziness. And there's all kinds of fucked up shit going on in the Catholic Church and in the religious organizations. But at least the religion teachings gives people like something to be like, oh, at least I know how to do some shit here. Yeah. Right. Instead of just like, I got to figure this shit out myself. And I think so many people are just like that because of everything. Yeah. And we've just separated as much as social media and as much as the computer seems like it's connecting us. again, it just creates islands, and people feel like they have a shield in front of them behind the screen. But on the other end of that, you're accepting that shit just as though someone was telling you. Like there's our stupid monkey brains aren't smart enough to realize that that's not real, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So cyberbullying, all that shit, like kids don't understand. That's why they do it. Yeah. And there's no direct repercussions. Like if you said some of that stuff to certain people, at least you might get punched in the mouth. Yeah. But behind a screen, doesn't matter. Right? And like, fuck. Yeah. Couldn't imagine.
Yep. And there's just so many layers of confusion that makes people not realize how not okay something like cyberbullying is, you know? Like on paper, if it were to be explained to you, the repercussions of that, it's a no-brainer. You shouldn't do it, you know? Yeah. People fucking kill themselves from doing stuff like that.
Easy.
But people are detached from what's moral, you know? From the truth and what's right. And it's really interesting. It's a crazy time.
Even like, I mean, I'm not a huge video game player. Are you a gamer?
No, not really.
I've never really been. So I don't want to sound like I'm like anti-video game or anything, but like it's a little bit of that too, where it's like people are so used to the same thing with like even like, you know, dating apps and stuff, like all this stuff. It's like a game on the phone, right? And I think like, not to sound like an old man, it's at least contributed to like the way people drive lately. Yeah, that's a whole other fucking thing. Don't get me started. But like again, it's just like a selfishness. It's like a game. Everything's a game. Everything's about like, how can I cut a corner? Yep. How can I cheat, but not like cheat? Like, you know what I mean? Just like, oh, obviously I want to win. And it's like, it's not everything is a competition. Yeah. You know, survival of the fittest and everything, but that's a misunderstanding of Darwin's teachings. Like the Ascent of Man or whatever, that book he wrote, only mentions survival of the fittest like 3 or 4 times in the book. The book mentions cooperation and love and working together mostly. Like 90% of the time, that's what it's talking about. Yep. It's like, that's why humans are where we are today. It's because we're one of the few species on Earth that are able to like just work together and not just fucking eat each other and kill each other when shit gets real. Yeah. Right? Like that's why we've gotten to where we are, because we can band together and do craziness. Like, not only like physical feats. I saw this video of like all these like Amish dudes literally deadlifting an entire building. Like there's probably like 150 guys. Like I'm not kidding. Tons and tons of guys. Cool. In like a barn. Imagine a barn, but like obviously nothing inside it. Yeah. It's just all like, but like areas you can like grab. Yeah. And like literally shoulder to shoulder, all these dudes just went and like shuffled. Yeah. This whole thing, and it just slowly moves.
That's amazing.
Right? Because like again, when you bust it down, you break it down, you're probably only lifting like 50 pounds at each hand. Yep. Right? Like you can do craziness. So that's, I think, the thing that is sad, and it's also tough with like cities. As much as I love cities, but like, you know, they say we're really not meant to live with more than like 150 people, like in a village. Like I shouldn't say meant to, because that's always weird. Yeah. We're used to living in villages with like no more than like 150 people. That like kind of became like the cap of like before we started like exiling people for being weird, because like it's hard for humans to remember more than 150 faces and names like they found through studies. So they kind of extrapolated from that. Like, we need to be in tighter groups, and like it takes a village to raise people. Like that was a thing. Like it wasn't always just 2 parents raising a kid all the time, right? Like it was kind of the entire village. And some cultures still have this. Like certain cultures, a stranger will like smack your kid if they are like running around, and you are like, thanks, basically, you're not like, I'm calling the cops right now. You know what I mean? So like, but that's the thing again, and it might just even be like a North American thing. Yeah. Where we're just so concerned about self-centeredness and like our agency and freedom. And that's, I think, comes from how the whole continent was like founded. It was founded by fucking wild people. People who were like, fuck the king, fuck this Catholic shit or whatever, or Protestant shit. I don't know. I can't remember, but they're like, fuck this religious shit. We're out of here. We're going to go start a whole new thing on Mars, basically. Like I always say, like, the people who would have left England and France back in those days to come to North America, which was like completely unknown land, would have been the same people that are saying today that they would go to Mars.
Yeah.
Like the same person, imagine that person. Mm-hmm. Like as wild as you think that person is, those are the same people who founded this whole fucking place. Mm-hmm. And there's people who are against all that shit. Yet they completely set up shit. Like I think the biggest issue is that all that stuff was set up so long ago.
Yeah.
And there was too, as much as I don't want to contradict myself, because earlier I said we're running out of traditions, but I think they respected tradition too long in the States and like upheld so many of those old school fucking amendments and like declarations and shit, like of gun ownership and all that stuff, because that was all written when there was like a threat that the British might come and take the country.
Yeah.
So a lot of the shit was written to be like, if this happens, fight for the nation, basically. Yeah. And then that just like turned in on itself, and it's like you can shoot someone if you wanted. Craziness.
Yep.
And then we were just so attached to England and Britain for so long. And then again, talk about the death of an empire. We got the fuck out of the British Empire in the 60s or whatever, which wasn't that long after World War II.
Yeah.
But we would have been like one of the last strongholds. Like that would have been a big hit to Britain, really, to England, if you think about it. When we were like, we're out of the Commonwealth, we're in the Commonwealth still, but we want to be our own country.
Yeah.
Like we were England, right? Like we had the Union Jack and shit, and in the World Wars, like we fought more in World War II. We fought as Canadians, but in World War One, we were like the Canadian division of the British Army, right? Which was great. Like talk about that book. Like Canadian soldiers were formidable.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Formidable, especially World War One. World War II, we were also really good, but I think especially World War One, we were like shock troops, basically. The Canadians were like shock troops.
What do you mean?
Like they would come in and just like fucking kill everybody right away.
Yeah.
And it would just cause this like reaction out of the Germans and the Axis. I don't know. What did they call them in World War One? They weren't the Axis, just like the enemy.
I don't know. They're in the book I'm reading. They refer to them as Fritz.
Okay, yeah. It was like the Germans essentially in World War One. That's the problem. It was basically just Germany v everybody.
Yeah, yeah, it reminds me of that, you know, that Norm Macdonald joke where he's like, man, you know, the more I learn about this Hitler guy, I don't really care for him. He's like, he decided to recruit Germany, and they wanted to go to war, and as their opponent, they chose the world.
Straight up.
Yeah. He's like, you'd think it would be a pretty one-sided match, but it was actually pretty close.
Dude, it was.
That's not doing the joke justice, but I love that guy.
That's a good Norm.
Rest in peace, Norm Macdonald.
Yeah, R.I.P. Oh my God. He was the man. But yeah, dude, that's what it was. Like, and they were like hella, like, I mean, we can go into the reasons and stuff, but they were like severely oppressed from World War One. Like all the shit, like the Geneva Convention and like all the, or the Treaty of Versailles and stuff. Sorry. The Treaty of Versailles was what fucked over Germany in between World War One and Two.
So what's that?
It's like this whole thing that all the, like the rest of the world basically got together in Versailles and were like, how are we going to how are we going to like get reparations from Germany for what they just did? And like, they like put crazy, I don't know about restrictions is the right word, but like, they had to pay all this crazy money to like all these different countries, like insane amount of money. It like completely bankrupted the country, sent it into a like crazy depression, not even recession, crazy. And then they're like, weren't allowed to do anything military. There was like just insane like shit. And then that's what Hitler, like, what the fuck is the word? There's like restrictions, I guess, whatever. All these laws against them that Hitler stood on was like, this is what we need. This is why we need to come back as a nation, because the world has fucked us over. The world has like stepped on us, and we need to like rise back. Jeez. So it was like not really like between World War One and Two. They say it was just like an armistice. It wasn't really it wasn't like the war was over. It's just there wasn't any like people being killed. That was still going on. And then World War II just like picked back up. That's how historians see it. But yeah, that whole idea of just like Canadians going over there fighting for Britain, but just like we're unreal, just like super just nuts. Basically is what it sounds like. Like they would be like, the Germans would like surrender, and they'd be like, Canadians would be like, oh yeah, for sure, bang bang bang, just like kill everybody. Like they were ruthless, like almost like war crimes bad.
Jeez.
But again, we have this crazy like, oh, Canadians are so nice.
Yeah.
But we fucking will shoot you.
Yeah.
So hard.
I don't know if you're watching the fights much these days.
No, not much.
A couple weekends ago, there was this guy, Chris Curtis.
Okay.
He's a great fighter. He's such a tough guy. And he was fighting this guy and having a pretty technical match. Like they weren't just throwing caution to the wind and closing their eyes and throwing crazy bombs.
Okay.
And it was in Canada. I think Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in Toronto.
Yeah.
And Canada just started booing. And there was nothing boring about the fight. And in his post-fight interview, he's like, you guys are fucking savages. Like, everybody says Canadians are polite, but, like, you guys wanted us to bleed. Next time we'll die. You know, if that's what you want, you know, like, I guess that's what's going to please you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of misconceptions.
I think there's a lot of angst, though, right now in the Canadians. I think we're back. I think a lot of that shit, like, you know, if you look at the Canadians back in the day, I mean, I don't know too much, didn't study them, but, like, they were ancestors of like the first people that came to Canada, like still probably, right? Like a lot closer to that anyway, like pioneer motherfuckers. Like pioneer people must have been tough cookies, bro. Yep. Tough fucking cookies. The cold, the everything that Canada is, what makes a tough person, right? And if you don't have an outlet for that like turns into like angst, right?
True.
So I think like the Canadians that went to war were like finally had an outlet to fucking kick someone back. You know what I mean? Like they've been shit on by the environment. Mostly they had it pretty good. It was just the environment that was really kicking their ass. Our government was pretty decent about just like do whatever the fuck you want kind of thing. No one was really, there's like kind of a lawless land for a long time. Like up in those days, like in the 1800s and shit. What the fuck? It was like beaver pelts and, you know, like great, like, the Bay, you know what I mean? Like whatever the Hudson's Bay Company and stuff, like doing all that and like, you know, those times.
No, I mean, yeah, but I don't know what the Hudson
like the
Bay
Wild
Company
West was
about.
The Wild West was happening in the States, like down in the South, like guns with cowboys. But we had like this crazy like mountain pioneer Wild West kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like beaver pelts were like like currency essentially. So like all these trappers around doing shit, and then the Hudson's Bay, like the Bay that became the department store. Oh, okay. It was originally this trading company.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it was like trading back and forth with Britain. And again, we were like so much closer. We were like we were like this like territory of England for this longest time, right? So there was a lot of connection between Canada, as much as you can. Obviously, you still have to like take a ship back and forth. It's not so great.
Yeah.
But yeah, early Canada was like do whatever the fuck you want kind of thing. Like just like the toughest worker just gets to do what they want. And there was just like so much land. You never felt like, oh, if something's not feeling great, you just go to another town or like just start a new place. Like there was so much freedom, and we hadn't really even gone that far west yet, right? Like Western Canada was just like completely wide open. And then like Americans started coming up and we started making our way over there. And then there was like a railroad, and then like there's a lot of like East Asians that started coming over to help build that. And like there's just like whole thing. I don't know so much about Western Canada history, but all that like Upper Canada, Lower Canada shit with the French and the English is just like so intense. All that. And then 1812 happened in the war with America. Like we fucking burned down the White House.
Oh,
we went to
news to me.
The White House that's in Washington is the second White House because we burned down the first one.
Why?
Because we're fucking savage. We were like, fuck you. We're going to burn your thing. Like, because we're in a war against America.
Yeah.
This is again Britain. It's not necessarily Canada.
Yep.
But it was Canadians, like the people that became Canadians. Like it was a serious war against, and like at one point I just learned this the other day. I saw this map where we were like willing to give like way more over to the States, like that with the actual border that was drawn, like that exists now.
Yeah. Was
all determined in the War of 1812. But before then, we had this, like, we were going to be like, all right, you can have, like, and it would have been, like, basically, if you drew a line, like, where Winnipeg is, like, just across Canada. So all of Southern Ontario would have been America. Yeah. A lot of this, like the bottom quarter where everyone lives would have all been America.
Yeah.
Super wild. But again, Canadians, fucking, and I think now, with all the shit, like, I don't know. I can only say because we lived it, but like we've been going through crazy shit as Canadians, different from the rest of the world. Yeah. Like particularly bad. Mm-hmm. Like say what you will about Trudeau himself, but like our government really played the safe hand, and that fucked us over. Like being classic Canadians, we just went with the safest bet, which was shut everything down, because sadly it was a safe bet. Mm-hmm. I hate it. I hate that had to happen. Yeah. I disagree with it. I wish it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. But what are you going to do in the face of danger, right? Mm-hmm. You either like, that was kind of the decision back then, was like, just go head first in it. We're going to lose a few old people and some immunocompromised people. Yeah. But we'll get through it quick. Mm-hmm. Or we shut her down and we know that curve is going to be flattened, but it's going to be prolonged. We kind of knew that, man. We kind of did. We said that. We did say that. You can't say the government didn't say this is going to be fucking long time. Yep. Right? Mm-hmm. But people forget easily. And then the reality kicks in where you're like, oh, we really can't do fuck all. We can't go see people. We can't go to concerts. We can't do all the fun stuff that like keeps you alive. Yep. Right? Like, it's the classic not Good Will Hunting. The other one, Dead Poets Society line. Never saw it. A really, really good movie. Robin Williams. It's a drama. Really good. Check it out. Cool. Check it out if you haven't seen it, to everyone watching. But Dead Poets Society, it's about Robin Williams. It's about Robin Williams. No, Robin Williams' character is a teacher, and he goes in and teaches these boys like in an all-boys school, and he's like a poetry teacher. And everyone's like, oh, fuck poetry. And he's like, listen, like medicine, engineering, physics, science, these are important, noble pursuits. Like, we must pursue those to keep the world running, to keep us alive. But art and music and poetry is what makes it worth living, right? Like, there's like so much more, and all that was really the shit that like fucked us over. Yep. Again, not to fucking keep coming back to the vid, mm-hmm. but I feel like that's where a lot of that angst is starting to build. Yeah. And again, people are testy. People are a lot more testy these days, right? Like, and again, like, there's a lot of different sentiments in rural Canada versus people in the cities in Canada, right? Like, it's just like a lot of different kind of Canadians too, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that separation just ossified a lot of those roles, and people are just like, I'm this person and I have to be this person because that's my identity. Mm-hmm. And that a person like me would do this in this situation, kind of thing, right? Yeah. That's what I mean about these role models, right? Like, when you're left without a role model, or you're gravitating towards a shitty role model, mm-hmm. your decisions are based off, poor influences, and you're just going to get yourself into trouble. And you're just going to perceive everyone as the other too, right? Like, yeah, which isn't necessarily the case. Mm-hmm. But that's that whole thing of like, we get further and further away from that like idea that we are this like collective unconsciousness or collective consciousness. You know what I mean? Yep. Yeah, we're kind of sick. Collectively, like mushrooms and stuff as a whole. Yeah, it's funny that I was thinking about this earlier, something that we were talking about. Just so the guy that I've done the couple silent retreats with, yeah, I consider him to be a super credible guy in the field of yoga and meditation. There's lots of maybe not so rock solid humans relying on theory and not so much practice when it comes to talking. But this guy, he's a judo black belt. Yeah, he's done all these different martial arts. When he was young, maybe we've talked about him before, I don't know, but he wanted to debunk all these different religions when he was like 20, and he got to Buddhism, and he was like, I don't even know if this is a religion, and I can't really find anything wrong with it. So doesn't consider himself a Buddhist, but he's studied all these different religions. Cool. So at these silent retreats that I've done with him, he'll like, the participants don't talk, but he'll do lectures sometimes. Cool. So he'll have an interesting lecture on some lesson, but we'll be like, all right, this is how it is explained in Hinduism. Right. This is how it's explained in Christianity. Cool. This is Buddhism. But a lot of the time, same message. Anyway, this is just me saying, I trust this guy. Like, he does his due diligence. He's like the 70-year-old Chinese dude. Very cool. I mean, I think he was born in England, but okay.
So he wrote this book called Ageless Wisdom Spirituality.
Okay.
Super generic name. Not going to jump out at you. But he talks about how sick we are, as a society, being North Americans. And there's lots of people who are on the path of trying to unravel the delusion and just operate from that place of base level consciousness or whatever presence, a place that's not operating from conditioned and conditioning and stuff like that. There's lots of individuals doing it. And actually the Amish people you talked about reminded me of this because I was actually talking to somebody else about this today. And he's saying in order for us to make a grand scale change, we need to band together. And he doesn't have a solution, but it can't be banding together in the way that the hippies did in the 60s and 70s because they were just banging and doing drugs and whatever, peace and love, all good messages, but not really going to be assertive enough to change some shit, Right. But then you can't really band together and be militant about things either because that doesn't work. So I don't think there's a solution or a conclusion in this book, and I don't even know, the Amish people. But just the takeaway was we need to find some way to come together to change things. Yep. And that's it. And something else we were talking about, I don't know pretty much anything about politics, probably to my detriment, it's irresponsible. But when I do pay a little bit of attention, a lot of the time it doesn't seem like an issue of changing an individual policy, although of course that's important to do because that has such an impact. But the people making the policy seem so sick, and their motivations, I can't speak for all of them, obviously, come from a place that's not for the greater good. It's from a place of greed or selfishness or power or whatever. So it doesn't seem like the right approach in that world, and this is all ignorant and that's fine, is attacking an individual policy. It's addressing the fact that it's being made by a bunch of sick, delusional people who don't take care of themselves, and they have these ideologies. So everyone just needs to fucking meditate and exercise and do mushrooms. And
exactly.
There's other blueprints to get to a place of centered-ishness.
100%.
But I guess the Amish people, they all banded together. Right. Like, that's amazing, man. Yeah. A person can't do shit to even budge a building, but 150 people, all with the same agenda, all with the intention of the greater good. Yeah. Not that they accomplished a whole bunch by moving that, but like the metaphor of that is amazing.
It's what it is, man. Intention is the thing. People are like, I can put thoughts and stuff into and like you can make thoughts into reality and stuff like that. It's about intention. Intention is actually potentially measurable. There's this Heart Math Institute that exists, and they do work on the noetic science, like mind reading and telekinesis and like weird stuff, but they do like real science on it to try and determine whether it's real or not. And one of the things that they work on is like, can you actually measure intention? Or emotion is one of the other things that you can actually, so it's not necessarily just like thought, like, I want the chair to move. And that's also a dumb thing to think. But like, I want, good things to happen, or I want the best, like prayer and stuff is a form of intentional thought, right? Where you're like trying to do something like that, right? So that whole thing where everyone's together, and it's scary, like you said, with politicians, like the people who are actually going to do it don't actually care about the well-being of others. They don't care about like the financial and fiscal policies of a country. They probably care about the paycheck and the fact that they can say like, I'm the president, right? Like again, look at Trumpsky, right? He's the antithesis of this idea that like it just has become a popularity contest, and it just doesn't matter. You can just say the right things and people will be like, oh, I'm just going to vote for this guy. And also so few people vote nowadays. So many younger people especially are so disheartened with the system they don't even vote, and then it leaves a certain percentage of the population making the decisions instead of an actual like 100% selection of the population deciding on who runs the country. And again, that's the other thing too, like the president and like the prime minister only makes so many decisions. It's all about like your local government and like even like your state or provincial government. Like that's the thing that is overlooked a lot, and like we're not taught all that well in civics class how everything works. But like those are the people who are actually making the decisions that like affect our lives. And again, they're corrupt, or like they're on the take somehow, or someone's in their ear, or they have their own weird fucking personal proclivities and trying to hide shit and skim money right? Like, it's too bad. Like, there's that stoic idea of a leadership, a true, or at least an effective leader should never be someone who wants to be the leader. You know?
Yeah.
You should choose, like George Washington was thrust into the position. He didn't want to be the leader, but he became an effective leader because he's like, I don't fucking actually want to do this, but we're all in this. I'm here with you.
Yeah.
We're going to do this together instead of, hey, you do this, do that. I want everyone to listen to me because I have all these great ideas. I know how to fix it.
Yep.
That's the last person you fucking want because they actually don't. And no one does. But if you put someone who's at least charismatic enough that people like them, they care about others' well-being, they understand how others work together, they understand that different personalities have different interactions and that certain people have certain skills. Like, some of the best teams I've ever been on are teams that can identify each individual's skills and then push them into situations where those skills shine.
Cool.
The worst teams I've ever been on are teams where you get everyone and you try to just make them all the same.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's not good. You need to have nuance. You need to have push and pull. You need to have balance.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the whole thing. And that speaks to that whole idea of like you were saying too, like, it's balance. It takes many people across many different backgrounds and experience to put those things aside and realize it's only 5% we're different. 95, we're all on the same page. Most of the things in life, shelter, food, well-being, rights, most of the time, 95% we're on the same page. It's just that little tiny bit that we focus on and we go, oh, fuck, like, we're so different.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. Even like, and you can extrapolate that to like the rest of nature. You know, we put ourselves as human beings on this fucking pedestal. Yeah, I was talking about Darwin and cooperation, but like, we talked about DNA. We share 99% of our DNA with apes. We share like 98% with like fruit flies. Like, crazy shit. That's like that. Crazy. Like, most things on Earth, we're like only, and I don't know about fruit flies. That's a wild one, but like 75% with fruit flies, like shit like that. Like, it's not far. Like, to a pig, to a reptile, to like anything that exists, a lot of our genes are the same. The reason I brought up fruit fly is they actually have like 96,000 pairs of genes or something. We only have like 23,000. They have more sets of genes than we do.
Crazy.
Yeah. But anyway, I digress. That's that whole thing where we are all one. Like, and it's easy to forget.
Yeah.
And it's hard to live life that way because it really seems like we're not. Everything seems external and not really us.
Yeah.
But like that adage of like, we are God experiencing it ourselves. That's all we are. We're whether that's the Matrix, whether that's simulation theory, where you're like, God is like the user, like in Reboot, who's just like deciding, all right, we're going to play this game. And the best game you can ever play is a game that you forget that you're even playing, that you forget that it's even a game.
Yeah.
And maybe we're just so fucking in it. Like Bill Hicks said, it's just a ride. Thrills and chills goes on, but you can get off anytime. And that's not fucking offing yourself. I don't want that to sound like that. That's every time I'm like, you can get off the ride anytime. That doesn't mean fucking it's done. It just means you can take a step back anytime and go, hey, none of this is real. This is all a fucking construct. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are very important that, though they may not be real, they have real consequences, like financial shit, money, bills, time, food, relationships with others.
Yeah.
But again, the stresses and stuff we've kind of constructed on ourselves because we don't live in a time where there's saber-toothed tigers fucking trying to bite our heads off. And like, we don't have to hunt to get our food anymore.
Yeah.
So now we're not as stimulated. So that energy has to go somewhere else. And it turns into weird anxieties and social shits and all that stuff. But fitness and other things, you can get that energy out. Right.
Yep.
Like, but you have to make that effort. It's not so built in as it once was.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if you're a hunter, your life's just built in. You're going to be climbing. You're going to be tossing. It's, again, to reiterate, built into the lifestyle of a hunter. Like, you're out and about.
Yeah.
Right. So, but we've gotten pretty far away from that.
Absolutely. So I have to pee really bad.
Okay.
Should we take a break or should I push through and wrap it up? My preference would be to take a break and come back.
Take a quick break.
Okay.
Okay, let's do it. And we're back. It's perfect timing too, because actually my buddy Mike Norman, shout out Mike. You'll be seeing this shortly. Long time listener, long time watcher. He's actually getting a tattoo right now. So he came into town and he's out there, but he left his car here. I drove him over there. So his tattoo's done a little earlier than expected. He thought it would be done around 6. So
what's the tattoo of?
He's getting like a whole chest piece. I don't even know. I'm sure he won't care. He said it's like this like kind of cracking attacking a ship kind of thing.
Cool.
But he's like I played football with him. He's like a big offensive lineman like me. So he's like a big chest.
Yeah.
So it's like a huge piece. So he was getting the whole outline today. So he was there since 11. So 5.5 hours basically. So he's been under the fucking needle for a while.
That seems quick actually. I think this took 5 hours. Maybe
but is that the whole thing?
Yeah.
See, he just got the outline.
Pieces?
He just got the outline done today.
Yeah.
So he's gonna have a few sessions. So I'm gonna have him back in for a few and stuff. So
cool. I think this was 3.5 hours actually.
Sick. How was that?
Fine. Yeah. The only part that was like really painful was right here.
True.
Yeah. Not so bad.
Nice. Yeah. Right on. Yeah, I'm still on the fence. I haven't got one yet. Surprisingly,
that's good. I waited until I was 29, I think.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah, it's sick. I love that tat.
Thanks.
It looks great on you too. It fits so well.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, that's the best. And like Mike's, all his legs are done.
Cool.
He wasn't gonna do anything up top, but now he's like, fuck it, I'm just diving in. So
yeah, respect for the commitment.
That's it. Anyway, can't wait to have you on again. Can't wait to just chill, normal style.
Me too.
As well.
Let me just address my little French guy mustache. I did this specifically for the podcast.
Okay.
That's it. That's the end of it.
I love it.
Meticulously shaved, so it was thin. It doesn't look super French, but I was trying to look a little sillier than usual. So
I've been checking it out. I think you had a handlebar mustache in one of ours before, for sure.
I think so. Yeah.
That's it. Right on, brother.
Yep.
All right, my
Thanks, man.
Cheers. Thanks for coming on. Darren Brooks, everybody. D44 Brooks or what? You want people to follow you?
If anybody wants to follow me, it's D Brooks Stuff and Things.
Oh yeah, we changed it up. Yeah, you're gonna see him do like some kind of handstands and shit every once in a while, fitness related,
maybe
alien related posts,
possibly alien stuff, possibly my parents' dog picking up large sticks. Who knows?
Anything can happen.
Yes.
All right, y'all. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time. Check us out: Instagram, Patreon, YouTube's. Love y'all. Peace.